you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
And we are back. This is Eye on Muskegon, Muskegon's #1 rated political talk radio show, and we are packed with intellectual firepower here this morning.
We're back?
Yes, we are. Well, we've been, it's been a week. You can imagine the void of intellectual communication that West Coast, Muskegon residents, and actually all those wonderful folks out there in the internet miss in the almost 7 days from the end of our Sunday show to the beginning of our Sunday show. So we are back. Well, truly, if you do care about politics, if you do care about what's going on, here in Muskegon and West Michigan, it does matter, but it's little different. Just maybe different faces, a little more soft-talking politicians. But what goes on here in our town is almost identical to what goes on in just about every other town, every other county, and every other state in the country. But as I was mentioning, this firepower that I have surrounding me here today, we've got Mike Hewitt. Radio talk show host, author. We were going to talk about author, but he got here late, so we're going to do that some other time.
He's going to scold you on air.
And proprietor of the Renegade River, which is a sport and gun show in Spring Lake, which we went down and bought a gun for Honey Bunch a couple weeks ago, and we were treated like the kings and queens that we believe ourselves to be.
Who was the queen and who was the king?
Well, that's true. We were dressed in an odd manner.
It was a little confusing.
Yeah, a little confusing.
No, but
I'm sorry.
I would recommend that you do go down to Renegade River if you're interested in any type of sporting goods. But they do have, not only do they have guns, they've got ammo, which is today, of course, we know a tough thing. And also, we have with us the intellectual giant of the middle seat.
That's fair enough.
There we go. Andy Fink, Professor Fink, who's certainly been should be familiar to most of you. But Andy, in addition to being Professor Fink and a lawyer, retired lawyer, so at least we don't have to fear him. He's chairman of the Muskegon County Republican Party, and he chaired our delegation over the weekend in Lansing at the state Republican Party convention, which didn't, unless you're really a political junkie, it didn't address too many issues that would be of interest to the average voter, the average worker, the average unemployed person. But I don't know, Andy, my thought off the top of my head, and I was relatively pleased with the outcome, but they did retain the past chairman, Bobby Stoshak, is that correct?
Shostak.
Shostak. I've got a problem with that.
We'll just call him Bobby.
We did retain Bobby, thank you. And I would say essentially the status quo was kept, but those newer people, in many cases younger folks, maybe Ron Paul people, Tea Party people, folks who have called themselves the Liberty Caucus, they made themselves heard. They were elected to many positions at the county, or not so much at the county level on this, but at the district levels, and they were able to modify or force some rule changes that kept them happy. And in fact, there were complaints about heavy-handedness in the past. And I got a feeling that this, even though there wasn't a big kumbaya and a big hug at the end, I think the state Republican Party is far more united today than it was like 2 years ago. What do you think?
I absolutely agree. For one thing, I believe that the party regulars, the ones who were running the convention and the caucuses, embraced the young Turks is what we used to call them. I think what are they? The Liberty Coalition,
Liberty Caucus, or Liberty Coalition, something like that.
Anyway, I was just so proud of our delegation from Muskegon, which was primarily made up of these Liberty people, and they organized. They put their candidates forward. Some got elected, most didn't, but they put their candidates forward. And when they lost, they smiled and went on with it. They didn't storm out of the meeting and go home. I see a great future for the Republican Party in Michigan.
Yes, and in Muskegon too. And Andy, I like your leadership of this, and it's interesting. We are of the age where we remember. I think it was Wild in the Streets, or the movie, but one of the movies back in the day in the 70s, and the mantra was "Don't trust anybody over 30." And Andy is clearly over 30. And I think he's earned their trust, and I think that's pretty cool. But aside from that, hey, I do want to remind folks, we are a phone-in show. We'd like to hear your comments about what we're talking about, or frankly, if you want to change subjects, that does happen occasionally on this show. So give us a call.
Rarely.
Yeah, we do have a little schizophrenia floating around the studio. But the number is 231-830-3109. Give us a call. We do not have a phone-in guest, so you can call all the way up till just before 10 o'clock today. So we'd love to hear from you. And I will remind again, the full audio and video, as Oscar provides, of our shows is always available on eyeonmuskegon.com. And the show prep that I use and it helps us wander around is on muskegonpundit.com also. So if you're interested in looking for some of the links or looking at some follow-up, where's the proof of what they were talking about, it's all right there. I tend to go back and look at 1 week's worth of posts, and I use that instead of using my brain because too many parts of my brain are too damaged to recall most of that. Yeah, the brain is significantly over 31. Of course, one of the things I do like to mention every show, and that is a quote from someone who I respect. And I've mentioned this before, but I think it's important today, and maybe in light of the fact that both the Democrats, of course, and the Republicans had their state political conventions. Milton Friedman had said at some point in the past, quote, "It's nice to elect the right people, but that's not the way you solve things. The way that you solve things is by making it politically profitable for the wrong people to do the right things." And I think that is really an important point because we were talking with many politicians. Of course, our governor was there, our lieutenant governor, our Congressman Bill Huizenga was at the convention. But one of the problems that we Republicans, and I know Democrats have the same complaint with their leaders, and of course they were so unhappy that they did oust their longtime Democrat Party leader and replaced him with someone else. But there are groups of people that hire lobbyists that make noise, and they communicate their wants and needs with politicians. They may use a lobbyist, they may have a rally, they may make hundreds of phone calls to your state representative or your state senator, but they are out there articulating their wants and needs. And if you, the public, if the four of us here in this studio, or if those folks out there listening, if you are unhappy with a particular issue, and we're going to talk about the Muskegon County Jail here in a minute, understand that the people who want the jail, for any number of reasons, it may be that they're going to be a contractor on the jail. Maybe they want more people in jail. Maybe they want more sheriffs and other people hired to be within the jail. Maybe they just like the concept of a big new jail with a politician's name on it. For whatever reasons, they are communicating to your elected representatives, and in this case it's the 9 Muskegon County Commissioners. Again, that's how politics works. But if you sit back and don't do anything, they will have their way. The politicians will listen to whoever is out there making noise. Andy, you're not necessarily a politician.
I was just thinking about what you said about naming the new jail, and I was thinking, well, that would be one way to really cut down on the cost to the taxpayer, to sell the naming rights, like Comerica Park or PNC Jail.
Well, no, wait a minute. Wouldn't it be a little more logical that Ruger Jail, and clearly the companies that manufacture guns and ammo and magazines, thanks to President Obama and thanks to all these people that are anti-gun, they are selling guns and ammo and magazines at a level never before seen. So thank you, the salesman of the year, President Obama, for increasing the sales and the profits of Ruger and Smith & Wesson and the rest of them. They do have additional monies, and why not? Yes. That's thinking out of the box, which I promise you has not happened on our county board for a while. I think when they're talking names, I think they might be talking about, as one of our county commissioners who's had quite a few buildings named after himself, Bob Skolnick, a Republican, a gentleman who calls himself a Republican. He has had the Skolnick Depression area house, and he paid for the naming rights.
I was going to say, the difference between Bob and most politicians in their naming things is that Bob pays for the buildings that are named after him.
Yes, he did. Well, but you're getting ahead of me. My thought thought would be, since Bob has paid for the rights for the Depression area Skolnick House, and at one time when the hospice was the Skolnick Hospice up there in downtown Muskegon, maybe we could get Bob or some of the other county commissioners to ante up the money to pay for this jail. What do you think?
I think they're going to do that. It's just that they're going to take it from a different source, and I would like.
That's true. I should have said ante up their own money. Oh, perhaps I should have gotten a little more specific. That's what happens when you have a lawyer sitting in the room with you.
Well, I think with all the lawyers you have in the phone book, I mean, each one of them put in $1 would pay for the thing. I mean, how many lawyers you got in Muskegon?
Good golly, we have a lot of lawyers in Muskegon County. You know, I don't often get to Lansing, but I was shocked. They have, the Lansing Lugnuts is their baseball team there. I don't know what level it is. Doesn't matter. But they have a relatively new stadium. I think within the last 10 years. It's pretty cool. It's right downtown there in Lansing. And I'm pretty sure it used to be called Lugnuts Stadium. Now it's called Thomas H. Cooley Law School Stadium.
Well, it's right there by the law school, and I thought to myself, the law school has its own baseball team? I've never heard of that.
Lawyers, you can imagine.
The lawyers play baseball. It'd be kind of scary.
Yes, it would be, certainly if you were expecting them to win. Hey, since we were talking a little bit about the jail, this is a big deal because the MLive reported this past week that the group of citizens and other assorted experts who get together to actually make the jail recommendations to the county commissioners have done the Kumbaya song, done the group hug, and have come out with what they believe is a winning plan for this new jail. And interestingly, they put a dollar figure on it, which is about $41 million.
Excuse me. But when we had the prevailing wage meeting at the Republican County Executive Committee, Chairman Mahoney was quite rude to you, Jim, for suggesting that the jail was going to cost anywhere like that.
It's funny you would bring that up since we talked about it before the show. But thank you. The segues are just moving right along here this morning.
He's not an actor, but anyway.
Yes, but he does play a lawyer in his household. Well, to me, that's a critically important point because we did have Andy Fink, as he has changed at least the way that our monthly Muskegon County Republican meetings are held. They do have the executive committee, which they meet and make important decisions and as to the direction of the party. But you've tried to bring in interesting guests, or at least have interesting conversations that are open to the public. And in January, you did have an expert from the Mackinac Center, and they were talking about prevailing wage. And prevailing wage is an important issue because it mandates union wages, union benefits, union reportage. It's a very cumbersome, and I firmly believe, and the expert from the Mackinac Center provided a lot of proof of this, that it adds significantly to the cost of a government program, a building in this case, and it's self-imposed. Anyway, we had this meeting, and because it was an open meeting, the chairman of the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners, who was a very prominent Democrat, very vocal Democrat, and a variety of other Democrats did attend the meeting. They were, frankly, I thought, quite obnoxious, and they were interrupting and making a lot of noise. But the one piece of noise that I did review this morning, because I did look at the video last night and then again this morning, was the chairman of the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners was very, very specific and vociferous in his denouncing of my suggestion that the jail would cost between $30 and $50 million. As a matter of fact, he was very, very clear in suggesting that the jail was going to cost, and unfortunately I've misplaced my amount, but $24 and $27 million, I believe, is what he had said. And now it comes out just 3 weeks later, it's going to be $41 million. Folks, the ultimate problem that we all face here is that we are being lied to. We are being lied to time and again, flat out lied to by people who want to take your money and use it for their own desires. So on that happy note,
I don't think Ken was lying. I think he just didn't know what he was talking about.
Well, I think he's lying. But you can decide. Certainly what he said has no truth to it. So I don't know how you put that in. Anyway, we will be back after this break, and we'll not lie to you when we come back.
You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
And we're back at I Am Muskegon. Hey, don't forget, we do want to hear from you. 231-830-3109. You can be on the air. And of course, ultimately on the Internet when we record the show. Interesting story. Really a stupid story, but quite hilarious. And you can find this on M Live. I posted it prominently on Muskegon Pundit. But the headline of the story this past week was, the Hugh Hefner of Muskegon enjoys telling his story after $7,500 porn theft. And this gentleman in Muskegon, it was first reported without the gentleman's name, but he had reported to the police that someone had broken into his home and stolen his valuable collection of pornography.
Where were you?
Well, we did talk about this. I was in church, I believe, that entire day. Okay. But for whatever reason, this guy was kind of proud of his collection, and so he agreed to be interviewed by a reportette from the Muskegon Chronicle. And here are some of the quotes. And the headline says, the Hugh Hefner of Muskegon. So, I thought, well, this is just over coverage here. But here's some of the quotes here. Quote, "I'm the Hugh Hefner of Muskegon. I appreciate all beautiful women. Ain't no doubt." And then goes on, like Hefner, the 43-year-old Johnson. Oh, his name is Early Johnson. Gotta love this. Gotta love this. And actually, I believe it was a
Did he
male.
smoke a pipe too?
It was a male who a male who wrote the article. Did he smoke a pipe? It doesn't say, but it's kind of a stretch to suggest that he's Hefner. It says, like Hefner, the 43-year-old Johnson considers himself to be a man of style who likes going out in fashionable clothes with a lady on his arm. Now, didn't indicate if the lady was inflatable, but nonetheless, he does like to have a lady on his arm. He enjoys the spotlight and says he likes to show off the expensive things he can afford when he goes out to the club. I've been a trendsetter in Muskegon since 1979. That's when I came into my own. That's when the girls started liking me and I started liking them. Johnson said he's choosing to stay positive and not let his setback get him down. Don't give the haters of Muskegon no power. Just live your life and have fun. Do what you want to do. Now, there's no mention of Mr. Early Johnson's profession and how he gets the money to have these ladies on his arm.
But we don't have to guess at his political party.
Well, ain't no doubt. Anyway, it is a funny story, but what ought to be depressing, and the reason I bring it up to this august radio audience, is that this article, I believe, had more hits than just about any article, if not every article, ever posted about Muskegon on M Live. And so for all the people who are worried about jobs, worried about feeding their family, are talking about, poverty and hunger and depression and crime and on and on and on and on, they're not interested in posting or even reading articles about that, but apparently Early Johnson and
let me ask you this question. There's one, I won't mention the name because you probably get sued, but there's one video store that still is alive and well in Muskegon, and they happen to have a porn section.
Seriously?
Yeah.
And you know all about this.
Well, I passed by it.
Yeah. On the way to church.
When I get my kid movie, yeah.
Well, that's interesting that you in these days of the internet. Well, it's this is sadly this is what gets people going today.
You can get porn on the internet?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can get.
You've had many viruses because of that reason, haven't you?
That could be. Maybe that's why
an authority on the topic.
He was trying to explain it in church.
Probably why the computers here in the studio don't work very often. But it is to me a little disappointing. And anyway, that's the way people are thinking. And of course, the big news today is not the Korean nukes, or it's not the fact that according to the President of the United States, literally every federal employee is going to be laid off next week, and you're not going to be able to get food and things of that sort. The big news, of course, is the Academy Awards. So there we go. Or actually, what's even bigger this morning, of course, was the big crash at Daytona yesterday.
Oh yeah,
and you can almost see the car racing folks on TV just drooling as they're talking about how dangerous car racing is and things of that sort. So
Pretty soon they're going to have us all living in little, not styrofoam boxes, but some.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be. that would be green friendly.
It'd be made out of leaves and twigs.
Go back to living in huts again.
They get a little zany. Yep.
Hey, another thing that came out this past week, which I think is very significant when we were talking about how is our county viewed by others in the world. And before I get into this, I do want to make one mention. This $41 million jail, they talk about, they promise us, the same people who told us just moments ago that it was going to be $23 million. They're going to borrow $35 million. They have some other monies that they're going to pay for it, but they're going to borrow $35 million. Ottawa County, I believe, has $43 million worth of bonded debt. Muskegon County has about $130 million worth of bonded debt. We're going to be adding $35 million of bonded debt, which will, just in this one lump sum, be almost the amount that Ottawa County has in total. And, of course, Ottawa County is quite a bit larger county than we are. But there was a little announcement. It wasn't even an announcement. It kind of spurted out from somebody at Public Works at a county board meeting. Remember all the hullabaloo some years back that the Tholstrup cheese plant from Denmark opened up a cheese plant in Muskegon County, and one of the main reasons that they came to Muskegon County was because of our wonderful wastewater system. Well, this little piece of information got extrapolated upon at the meeting, and when we come back from break, we'll talk about it because it sets a very frightening future for us here in Muskegon County, just as we prepare to spend another $41 million that we do not have. Muskegon is back on the air, and we are not going to lie to you, but we might highlight folks who are telling you things that are not true. And as I mentioned, Muskegon County, like many, many other counties in our wonderful state, has got some very serious spending issues. And the best way that any municipality can come out of their debt problems, their spending more than they bring in, is to increase the amount of revenue that they bring in. If you're typically the average American looks at it the other way around. They say if they got a lot of debt and they've got some problems paying it off, yes, it'd be nice to get a better job and get more income, but more often than not, we just cut back in spending. Municipalities, governments tend not to do that. But the best way to increase your revenue, the cleanest, clearest way, of course, is to bring in more taxpayers, be they residents who are going to build homes in your community, or the best one, of course, is bring businesses in who will not only pay property taxes and other taxes, hopefully income taxes because they're profitable, but they'll also hire people. And one of the things that Muskegon County's been, at least they say they have been trying to do for decades, is to bring more people in to take care of our, quote, world-class wastewater system. And now, many of you may know, but if you don't know, the over half of the wastewater capacity was utilized by the paper mill that is no longer in town. So it is now a money loser. It doesn't bring in even enough money to pay the maintenance and the costs that are involved in running it, nor does it bring in enough revenue to pay for the bonds. So the counties and all of you, if you've been looking at your sewer bills and water bills, they've been going up almost more than double, I think, within about 2 or 3 years, and the plan is that they're going to go up significantly down the road. But one of the companies that was attracted to Muskegon County, and this is a good 10, 15 years, perhaps even longer than that, was a cheese manufacturing company from Denmark called Tholstrup Cheese Company of some sort. And at this county commission meeting just this past week, someone made a mention, don't we have this cheese company over there at the waste, that's using the wastewater treatment? And somewhat sheepishly, the person who knew about it said, they've shut down and moved out of town. Now, what was interesting was that it was clear that the people from the M Live, the Chronicle, who were there was a reporter there, and it was clear that if any of the county commissioners knew it, they didn't let on. Most of them seemed to be shocked. I know I didn't know anything about it. Again, because so much was made of the brilliance of those folks who have been out there marketing Muskegon County as a place to bring your business to, and in particular to utilize this world-class wastewater treatment facility that they had. And in the article, there was an interesting comment. It wasn't in the article. It was in comments of people that they can post on MLive. And it was from the woman, I believe it was. It says, quote, "I was hired there in 1986 and worked there for 12 years. It was a great place to work, high pay, good benefits. It's a shame to see it leave. A lot of memories, blah, blah, blah. For Tholstrup's 100th year anniversary, they paid for everyone at the Muskegon plant to go to Denmark for a huge celebration. It is a memory I will never forget." Anybody got maybe a wonder if that's connected with the fact that the company's shut down and all the people who are working there are unemployed now? I don't know. Maybe that they caught some disease in Denmark or something, but it's unfortunate. You can't spend more than you bring in perpetuity.
It is fascinating to think that ideology really does not deny math.
Yeah, that's exactly. The denial of arithmetic is perhaps the greatest cause of problems in our country, anyway. And it most certainly appears to be a cause of continuing problems here in Muskegon County. But
well, I don't think the Hawaiian school systems are noted for their arithmetic prowess.
The Hawaiian?
That's where our president went to school, isn't it?
Oh, or so he says. That's true. Well, he did proudly, and of course he makes no mistakes, he did proudly say that he had visited all 57 states in his first run. And of course now we're still obsessing over a bottle of water that Senator Rubio couldn't find.
But a fascinating coincidence is that there are 57 Muslim states in the world.
Oh, come on, you're just being racist.
I'm just telling you that a mathematical fact is there are 57 Islamic states in the world.
So it was an honest mistake on his part then.
Going back to your other points, you've made a couple of them along the path today, Jim. You're talking about prevailing wage, and we're talking about the difference between 23 and 41 million, and the fact that the prison will cost more than 41 million by the time it's done. The problem with all of these things, as Oscar has for certain heard me harp about in the past, is that the average citizen cannot reduce this down to what does it mean to me. And so you're talking about prevailing wage, and God bless you for doing it, but the average person's eyes is glazing over. They don't have a clue how prevailing wage actually affects them in their life, driving down the road in Muskegon, Michigan. And so unless we can drill it down to say this is going to cost you, whatever, 5 pizzas a year, or it's going to cost you X number of dollars a year, certain percentage of your paycheck a year, it's why we keep hopping from topic to topic with nobody staying locked on an issue. So we grumble and we hop up and down angry, and next week we hop up and down angry about something else.
Well, we did talk about prevailing wage. We did have a complete show on it, and we did have somebody from the Mackinac Center on, but you're exactly right. We hop on it, then we move on. And I think that's an issue that Republicans in particular really need to address, because we do not, like as you said, we don't break it down to how this is going to affect you. And I would hope that the Republican communication would get better out. Something I'd harped about, I sent an email out early last week, and it was complaining that the Democrats have really done something really cool. Organization for Action, which was initially President Obama's campaign, and it's had a couple name changes, but now he's restarted the Organization for Action, and it's sort of his lobbying group and fundraising and all. But they sent out a very cleverly put together email saying how awful gun violence was, and you've probably had, if you've had any family or personal experience with gun violence, would you be willing to put together your story, either send it to us in email or create a video? And I got that email on Monday from Organizing for Action. On Thursday morning, I got the first video. So they moved that quickly. And it was fabulous.
Yeah, the Socialist Democrat Party have always been masters at coming up with a dozen people with tears on their cheeks and big, gigantic, long sob stories.
Yes.
And that's been how they've been able to communicate their point, and it certainly works for them. because it denies the reality of one person versus 340 million people.
No, I'm going to disagree with that only to this extent. Only to this extent that they create their story, and even though, and I would agree with you that it is in fact a sophistry. It's only a half story, but they present it in a manner that you're just suggesting that we ought to get better at.
Oh, no.
They present it in a wonderful manner. Now, what freaks me out about this, and the thing that got me so frustrated in my email, was that we Republicans, folks who believe in the Second Amendment, and also believe that there are more reasons to have a gun than simply hunting and other reasons, but in fact to have it for home defense or the defense of your family or your business. We know and we read daily of specific incidents about people in the United States of America protecting their homes, their businesses, their families, and so on. And yet, I've never received an email from any right-wing group, be it Republican Party or you name it, saying, tell us your story. So in other words, we don't need to reinvent any wheels. We don't need to be smarter than we are, because we're not going to get any smarter. Republicans are awful when it comes to communicating their issues. We just need to look at what the Democrats are doing that works and try some of those things. And it would be like, to me, it's like the Republican...
There's a concept.
There's a concept, yeah. Find something that works and do it. And it reminds me of can you imagine being a soldier and they're preparing for war, right after World War II, let's just say, and hearing that the American the president had hired a whole bunch of Italian admirals and French generals. You probably wouldn't feel very good. But that's kind of the way I feel about our Republican leadership today.
I understand the feeling, Jim, but if you go back to the sad stories of the tears on the cheeks and all that, for me the difference is this. If there's 4 people in the room right now, if I promise you each a half a glass of water from my glass of water, I've lied to somebody. And for the average conservative, forget party naming, the average conservative says, Mike, you're not going to be able to get 4 half glasses of water out of that glass of water you fibbed to somebody. So we don't really feel the need to come up with a whole parade of people with tears on their cheek about how they need a half a glass of water, because it's obvious we don't have enough water.
Wait a minute, Mike. I want to know
all of that.
I want to know who's funding the person who measures the number of halves of glass of water.
Can you tell who the attorney is in the room?
Well,
that's the problem. So they skip the fact that we don't have enough water. They're going to demonstrate how these 4 people desperately need water, and the mean, evil, rich guy is the one that's keeping the water.
So what should we do? You're suggesting that what they're doing is wrong. What should we do?
I'm not suggesting coming up with a big parade of nonsensical
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that we reduce these things down from 43 billion or whatever the real number turns out to be, to say, Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer in Muskegon County, this is how it affected you. And we don't do that. What we do is say, we won that one or we lost that one, or we move on to the... I'm not talking about you, Jim. I'm talking about us as a society.
No, I'm hearing you, and I could not agree with you more. I'm not so sure taking $43 million and dividing it by the number of people in Muskegon County and
working people.
Well, even that, because the problem is not that it's going to cost you money. It isn't. It's going to the average person's going to maybe 3 DiGiorno pizzas. The problem that what it's going to cost, and again, we need to come up with real numbers, and we're not obviously successfully doing that at this point. It's going to destroy your county in the same way that Detroit destroyed itself. You will have no businesses move into town. You will have no jobs in your town. You will be. It's not just what's it going to cost you divided by the number of whatever you want to divide it by. It's far, far greater than that. That cannot be presented to the low information voter and the young people in this country unless you present it to them in a fashion where they get their information. And I can promise you, because I'm finding that if I know about it, it's pretty clear that almost nobody else does, and vice versa, because I listen to the Fox News, I listen to the internet. Young people do not. Young people do not listen to any television news. They do not read any newspapers. They do videos. They do texting. They do the kinds of things that the Democrats have very successfully done. And I'm not so sure there are 2 people in the entire leadership, certainly of the Michigan State Republican Party. Their communication skills are lacking would be a step up. They're non-existent. And at the national level, I would say the same things. We have a simple situation here with this $41 million jail. We have a clear, Andy can be charitable. I'm going to say a clear lie. We got the chairman of the Democrat Party or the county board running around saying things that are patently untrue and are proven to be untrue about 2 weeks later. We've got stories here that matter. We do not have a good way of communicating, and I agree with you,
Jim. I got to tell you, I have a little bit more faith in the American people than that. I really do.
You know who just got reelected president of the United States?
Yeah, but hang on. I got to tell you, I think he won because a lot of people assumed he couldn't possibly win, and they stayed home. But that's a separate conversation. The last time we had a president that had a genuine landslide was a different person that said, you know what, I believe in the American people. I think they're smart enough that I can tell them the truth. That was Ronald Reagan. And I mean, you had Reagan Democrats, which was a real term, not something the Abomination guy came up with to try to respin yesterday's news. My point is that if we reduce these monstrous numbers or terms like prevailing wage down to what it means to the individual citizen, I think you're going to draw those, what did you call, low information citizens? I think you'll draw them back into the conversation. And I agree
with you.
I got to tell you, the people that come in my shop are everywhere from 18 years old all the way to 80, and they're just regular people. And I would never ever, there's very few of them that I would assign the term low information to. Almost every single one of them I can have an ongoing dialogue, just like I have with you, on almost all the topics of our times. But they're doing what I'm saying. They're moving on from one snapshot to the next, because all of this has become a blur. Terms like prevailing wage, terms like $43 million, that doesn't mean anything to the average person in terms of how it impacts them. And until we communicate on that level without the big room full of teary Democrats that are all sad about what they didn't get for free, we're not going to win this battle.
Well, you know, again, I cannot disagree at all. The problem that we face here in Muskegon, certainly on this show, where we're trying to get people energized and get them going, is you cannot fix what I might perceive as a problem or a health issue or whatever if you refuse to acknowledge that there is a problem. I do believe conservatives refuse to acknowledge that we have a communication problem. Therefore, they are clearly intent on making sure nobody wastes money trying to fix this problem that they deny even exists. Now, I think that's changing. Maybe we'll see. We've been promised, actually, at the state convention, Shostak had a big video there that let us know he was really going to increase his communication. I'd like to see that happen. But, you know, I'm going to segue over to something that was really cool. Oscar, what kind of time do we have left here?
Well, we could take a break, but...
Okay, let's take a break, and I'm going to come back because we had, to me, one of the reasons that I think that we can start feeling excited is that people are getting energized. We had our smart meter meeting this past week, and I was lucky to be part of it, and it was an enormous success, and one of the most important questions that was asked during that was, okay, fair enough, what can we do to stop it?
So everyone had a meter on their head measuring their smartness?
That's what certainly Dave Alexander of the Chronicle would like you to believe, but we will be back afterwards to talk about that.
You dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum government.
All right, we are back with Eye on Muskegon on a beautiful-ish Sunday morning. And those folks out there interested in getting their pockets in every hand of your clothes are still vigorously flexing their fiscal fingers. And on the phone, though, we got a call in.
Sounds like a flying. What was that laugh-in thing?
Well,
finger of fate.
In the spirit of Early Jones. But we do have a caller from. Where are you? From someplace in the South, caller.
I am on sunny Anna Maria Island off the coast of Bradenton, Florida.
Is that America, or are you in some...
Yeah, it's still the U.S. here, although I did eat Indian cuisine a couple nights ago.
What, did you do that like in a teepee and pay with wampum?
No, in the East Indian.
Oh, okay. So you're like where Columbus ended up.
Right, the
There we
Spice
go.
Island.
Wow,
Yeah.
Jim.
Okay, we're stretching it here. But you had a point. We were talking about property taxes and revenues and things of that sort. And you are from Muskegon, but you're on vacation now. And you had a kind of an interesting point, we thought.
Well, I am paying county taxes down here this month because I am in a short-term rental.
That's interesting.
And I happen to notice, just walking and driving around not only this island but all the way up to Clearwater Beach, that half the license plates we see down here are Michigan plates. And my question is, what does Muskegon County do to market itself to Florida residents in the summertime? Because if you go on vacation rental by owner, there are very few rentals in Michigan available, and I just see that as a great source of revenue in the summer months.
That's interesting because we've had friends who have voiced interest from other states to come up here and rent the homes or find ways that they can stay in Muskegon County or maybe down in Grand Haven. And you're right, there are a few of them. I don't know why the vacation rentals by owner, which we've used on a variety of other occasions, isn't utilized up here. Maybe that we just don't, because our shoreline is almost entirely private. We don't have much in the way of commercial shoreline, so that may be the answer.
Yeah, I've got a friend that owns a couple homes on that shoreline here on Lake Michigan. That's the purpose he owns them, is for rentals, short-term rentals, like she's describing.
Well, I would say this. Muskegon County, and there's some rumblings that actually showed up in the last couple of weeks at the county board, because the county board and many of the cities and townships do fund an organization called, I believe it's Muskegon First, and one of the goals of Muskegon First is to increase companies coming into town, employment and employees, of course, and also to increase the tourism and things of that sort. They are very big, as they have, if you've lived in Muskegon County for any number of decades. You have heard this. It used to be New Muskegon and any numbers of organizations promising to bring any number of wonderful things to our county. And one thing that they every group has stayed the course on is that they have not provided any proof of their success. And even as a matter of fact, what's the big Michigan, the Pure Michigan program? I find it interesting because everyone, all the proponents of the Pure Michigan program, tell us that let's say it's $100 million being spent on it is wonderful, and it returns $14 for every dollar spent. But the reality is that if $100 million returns $14 for every dollar spent, then why aren't we spending $200 million? Why did we end up with the Goldilocks, just the right amount? And if it's so fantastic in its return, why aren't the companies that are theoretically benefiting from this, why aren't they putting their own money into it? And I have seen enough of Muskegon County's professionalism in terms of providing results that I wouldn't be interested in any way, shape, or form of involving them in any way, shape, or form of promoting someone who's trying to rent his home or not. Now, we do send people to trade shows, and we do advertise, and we do things of that sort. And again, they have yet to present ever to any of the county board meetings that I've been at any proof of their success. And as an anecdotal proof, perhaps, of their massive failure, both Muskegon Township and Fruitport Township have said, enough, we will no longer support Muskegon First, and we're not giving you any more money.
City of Whitehall did the same.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
And they really, Muskegon First is just a new name for the same old group of people that say, give us money and we'll do wonderful things.
And as Andy knows too, that Whitehall or White Lake basically never has any trouble filling any of their spaces. They have quite a few spaces there for rent, and those all seem to be used up. In
well, and there's another reason too here. And Paula, you're down there in Florida. We were lucky enough to take a Mediterranean cruise, and we went all through the northern Mediterranean. We went to places like Venice. Venice is essentially a really beautiful dump, but there's nothing that goes on in Venice other than tourism. All right, that's what tourism's all about. You go to Rome, you see it's all tourism. It's fantastic. We don't really have the infrastructure, and I don't mean highways. We don't have the places for tourists to go. Now, you can say, geez, maybe we ought to give the brilliant Einsteins that have been running our county so wonderfully over the last decades, let's give them $100 million and have them create Disneyland on the lake or something. But really, does anybody expect that's likely to happen? Maybe we ought to be attracting businesses rather than bringing in cheese companies, giving them, full reign of the county, and then when they scurry out in the middle of the night, they don't even bother to, they don't even seem to know about it.
Often, though, Jim, the allure is the government grant. A lot of 50-50 match money, and if you go down to Ottawa County where they're tripping over themselves trying to get the next 50-50 money from the government. But the irony to that is that if you walk through the beautiful courthouse in downtown Grand Haven, it's about 50% capacity.
Yeah.
And if you walk through the county complex down on Fillmore, it's about 50% capacity. And you start waiting. I'm starting to see a trend here. So, I mean, and what we've traded for that, because every time you're signing into these bonding or these 50-50 grant things, you're giving up a little bit more of your local control of the federal government.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we're doing that for half-empty buildings, that we can have more half-empty buildings.
You mentioned Ottawa County, but I'll just do this comparison, which we mentioned before. Ottawa County has 263,000 people in it. Muskegon County's got about 172,000 people. Ottawa County's tax rate, their county tax rate, is 3.6 mils. Muskegon County's tax rate is 5.7. Ottawa County's unemployment is below 6%. Muskegon County is close to 9%. I have no problem with tourism, but certainly getting more governmental involvement in tourism is a recipe for abject failure and disaster.
As a member of the tourist industry, I agree with you completely.
Well, that's right. You own and run a bed and breakfast.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But I would say this: if you want success, tourism works if you're in Venice, if you're in Florida, where you do have essentially a 10-month season there. We don't have that here. We don't have ski hills here. We created the Snurfer, and which ultimately became snowboarding, which has moved elsewhere. But
the luge.
Focus on what we have, and what has been successfully capitalized on is what the counties of Kent and Ottawa County have capitalized on, which is they're by highways. They've got ample employment. We've got well-educated people and all this kind of things. Our educated people are leaving the states for jobs. Do what they're doing. Again, we do not need to reinvent the wheel. We cannot become something that we are not. But we do have a wastewater system. We do have land that is essentially, costs nothing relative to other places. We are near highways. We are near Chicago. We are really near our number one trading partner, which of course is Canada. And we are surrounded by two counties who are booming, two of the most successful counties in the United States of America. Holland has the fastest employment growth of any city in the United States. So it seems to me all we need to do is just to look around. We don't even need binoculars. Just look around, see what the people who are succeeding are doing, and maybe try doing what they're doing. But our leaders are telling us, no, just give us another grant writer.
I think the county commissioners should come up with a slogan and put billboards all over saying, "We are adequate, Muskegon. We are adequate."
Yes, just like Muskegon High School did just prior to their collapse.
Jim, you misunderstand the motivation of the county commissioners. I can't remember his first name, but a Dr. Buchanan from George Mason University got a Nobel Prize in economics by showing that public officials make decisions based upon their own benefit.
There's a shocker.
And
that was a publicly funded study, too, by the way.
Our county commissioners are going to do what it takes to be reelected. They are not going to do what it takes to benefit the people of Muskegon County.
I got to tell you,
I agree.
I think the do-gooder clause here has a big effect on it. These fellows, ladies, respectively, are running around thinking, what can I do? So they're literally physically investing great amounts of their personal time into saying, what can I do? Completely, I mentioned Reagan earlier, who said that we can get a lot accomplished if we don't care who gets credit. That's not how these local politicians are thinking. They're specifically doing things so they can get credit for them, have their 15 minutes of fame and notoriety for having achieved some notorious goal the county didn't need. But if you look at all of the different counties in the state and say the ones that are doing better are also the one with a lower tax mill.
Well, they're
not a coincidence here.
They are more likely to have a well-managed financial system. We have our pension fund debt. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but it's going to destroy us. And let's use that as a segue to get over to some of the things that are going on in our state beyond Muskegon County. And not shocking, I'm sure, to anybody who's reading the newspapers, but perhaps to those people who can't wait for tonight's Academy Awards. The review team. This is from actually, interestingly, this is from the Houston Chronicle. The review team headline, Detroit is in financial emergency. Here's a quote. The team released its findings on Tuesday, that's just this past week, saying in a report to Governor Snyder that, quote, no satisfactory plan exists to resolve a serious financial problem. Now, that's hardly news, but the fact that that the team finally is going to put something like that down on paper, oh my golly, how hurtful. Well, interestingly, within the same week, this was reported. This was reported in the Detroit News. Half of Detroit property owners, one half of the property owners in the city of Detroit, just didn't pay their taxes. So in other words, the city of Detroit is so ill-managed, is filled with so many crooked bozos, they're not even bothering to collect the taxes from half of the building owners. I mean, folks, there's something wrong there. Can you fix that by giving them another grant? Is there a way to fix it?
But Jim, I don't know when the last time you've been to Detroit was, but
very recently. It's awful.
If a couple of years ago when I went back down there for some medical tests at Henry Ford's Hospital, I remember going down as a child, and there were big, beautiful homes and blocks and blocks in every direction. And now Henry Ford's Hospital looks like it was built out in the middle of a field somewhere. There's nothing anywhere near it. So you got a city that's worse than half empty that owes a $20 billion deficit.
And Jim,
it's unpayable.
And if they went after the
entire state will end up paying it. I'm sorry, Andy.
If they went after the tax dodgers, all they would do is end up with more money or more land in the ownership of the city. Vacant, doing nothing.
I patently reject that. They're not even getting. I mean, think about it. You got 50%. I can understand. You got 4% that are not paying. You got 50%. They're not paying because they know they don't have to pay. There's no city in the United States of America that has the ability, after letting for years and years and years, let 50% of the taxpayers not pay, to start up and get them to pay again.
People are telling them to do this, though. People are telling them out there to do this.
Yeah.
If you can't afford it, leave.
You're an idiot. Well, not only leave, but don't pay taxes.
Right.
We're not going to bother to collect them. Can you imagine if you go 2 or 3 years without paying taxes,
and
then you come in and say, you got to pay taxes? They're going to say, bull beep. They're going to say...
A little excited, are we?
Folks,
no.
Well, here's an interesting thing, because one of the arguments against all of this that's going on in Detroit, and it's the identical argument that was given to us for the people in Muskegon Heights, and the identical argument that is giving in too many other cities, in particular minority-run cities, is you can't stick your nose into our situation. Let us do what we want. We're going to manage our own things. You people do not have the right. You do not have the authority. You don't even have the moral interest in telling us what to do. The problem with that argument is exactly what Mike just said here. When they destroy it, then they come to you and say, you must bail us out. So if it's automatically agreed upon in advance that if you destroy it and if you steal it and you kill the city of Detroit, you kill the school system of Muskegon Heights, that other people who have nothing to do with it are going to have to pay, then it seems to me we ought to have some interest in managing it before it does go off a cliff.
Jim, the problem is way bigger than all that. Okay, the last time I saw
that's pretty darn big.
No, but worse. It's way bigger than that. You've got a city with a functional illiteracy rate of approaching 50%. You've got an unemployment rate within the city that's over 50%.
I think you're talking Muskegon Heights, right?
But it's the same.
It's right here.
It's the same ideology that causes both.
Of course.
Progressivism, hardline socialism doesn't work. They took a city in 1960 that had the highest per capita income in the United States, and they've turned it into an unemployable. With 50% of the people that have no marketable skills whatsoever.
We know the negative, but what's being discussed right now is not will we bail them out, not how we will bail them out, but how much money we will give them. And I would again recommend that if you expect any companies to move into the state of Michigan, if you expect any companies to move into Muskegon County, because we're bailing out, of course, the school system in Muskegon Heights, if you're not going to call your state representative or your governor or your state senator, you can be sure that the folks in Detroit are calling them. You can be sure that the unions are going to be calling them. You can be sure that the contractors that are getting the preferred prevailing wage income will be calling them. So if we sit and do nothing, not just the cancer of Detroit and the cancer, I love it, it's on both sides of the state, the cancer of Muskegon Heights and at the north up there in Flint, that cancer will metastasize until it meets in Lansing, surprisingly.
I've done my best. I've reached out to the Ohio government and asked them to take Detroit from us.
Yeah, well.
I said, we almost fought a war over it. You guys won. Just go ahead and take that whole entire chunk down there. It's going to be okay.
It still leaves us with the debt.
Oh, no, they should get the whole thing, don't you think?
Well, we're
not going to let them buy the city without the debt.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not going to happen. We can stop these things. We can fix them. One thing we did do, and I'm not a great fan of Governor Snyder, but we did replace him, or replace Jennifer Granholm with Governor Snyder. We can, if we get enthused, make some changes. I don't know if we will or not. But let me talk about changes. This is just a classic story from MLive. Grand Rapids has a niftily named organization like our Muskegon First, but theirs is the right place. This is their Grand Rapids Economic Development Agency. And they were recently granted a $20,000 grant to study the potential of growing more hops in the state of Michigan. Now, hops are used in beer, and of course, for whatever reason, the Grand Rapids is considered beer city, and
even in the ice,
and there's they have all these microbreweries and things of that sort. But in this article promoting the brilliance of the good folks at the right place, in getting their $20,000 grant to study the possibility. Is it possible? Could we do this? In the article, they quote, one local brewery and local hop farmers say more hops could mean more jobs and more money for the state. I mean, they ought to have that as an automatic. Why should you have to type out more jobs, more money? Bingo. That's part of every story.
There ought to be a macro for it, right?
Yeah, exactly. There ought to be a macro. Anytime you're going to talk about, taking money out of people's pockets, it'll result better. Anyway, Bonnie and Jeff Steinman grow hops at their Hickory Corners farm in Berry County. The Steinmans put in a hop yard on a plot that used to grow soybeans. They started selling the hops years ago. They said their farm, Hophead Farms, is already growing. In the last year, they added about 30 acres of hops and doubled their workforce. We felt like it was worthwhile because everything we had was sold. Now, this is in the same article that thinks it's brilliant to spend $20,000 to find out if it can be done. They're already doing it.
Well, I don't think it would work anyway because it's called Hophead, so I don't think people would like that too well.
Oh, my golly. Maybe that was the reason for putting it in. I don't, These are monies that the Snyder administration, with a Republican House and a Republican senator, approved to find out if it can be done. Oh,
was that the MEDC, Michigan Employment or Economic Development Corporation?
Well, Yes, but in a roundabout way. This money, the right place, which is Grand Rapids Economic Development Agency, of course, has not much in the way of their own income, and money is fungible. Money, wherever the money comes from, but they get significant amounts of money from the state, and they probably get like our first Muskegon First. They get monies from the county, and they get it.
Don't
other places.
all politicians have to hire a consultant so they can blame it on the consultant if it doesn't work?
That's what's happening here in Muskegon.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I did.
That's right. That's why consultants are making so much money these days.
Yeah. Well, there we go. There we go. It's never ending. Another article just this past week: Lansing bus drivers, Lansing Bus Authority. Get this: had 69 drivers who made $60,000 or more a year in 2012. Now that's cash money. That doesn't include pension benefits and lifetime medical benefits after retirement. One of the bus drivers even earned $104,000 a year. These are bus drivers. So if you're wondering what's happening, folks, while you're watching the Emmys and the Academy Awards in Daytona, these folks are hiring lobbyists and calling their good buds in the cities, in the counties, in the state. Before we go to break,
so are they making a lot of money? Is that why they can afford to pay the bus drivers this much?
One would question whether Lansing has excess money to give away, but I don't know. But here's a final one, and this is Detroit. A wonderful article about Detroit, and it's titled, "Detroit Gave Unions the Keys to the City, and Now Nothing is Left." And it says, this is just a great quote, he said, "All you really need to know about Detroit, which is facing a $327 million budget gap." Now, that's just for 1 year. They do have $14 to $20 billion in total debt, but all you really need to know about Detroit is that last year it was discovered to still be paying for a horseshoer, which on the books is a farrier, Farrier. So in case you just see farrier, didn't bother looking it up. On the Detroit, this horseshoer is on the Detroit Water and Sewer Department payroll. His pay and benefits $56,000, despite the city not having any horses. So if you want to know what's going on in Detroit City, folks, that's an indication. I imagine that job would be a goodie to get. Probably not all that hard working. We'll be back after this break.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
And we're back at I Muskegon.
Oh, my.
And we have got our august board and of Andy Fink, Professor Andy Fink, and we've got the shooter, Mike Hewitt, and the bleeper in chief, Oscar Osbo here, trying to keep us on the air without the feds coming down. If you hear any SWAT team explosions, you can be sure that we've been vocal. Hey, a little bit of time left here. I want to. Right. Goodbye, folks. All right, we're back again. Hey, a couple things coming up that are indicative again of the people who are in communication with our county commissioners, and you're not. You would think about this: the Community Development Strategic Planning Committee, which is one of I think about 6 or 7 committees that the Muskegon Board of Commissioners has. That's a committee that could really be doing things. It essentially does nothing. This week, the only item for the full board is they're going to approve the transfer of Lot 50. Blah, 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 in Lakewood Club for the sum of $100. That's it. That is the extent of community development strategic planning for this month of February 2013. The chairman of that committee is Bob Skolnick. You might want to give him a call. Say, Bob, geez, there's no other planning to be done. Transportation committee is also going to be approved. Get this. They are expanding this bus system in Muskegon County like you cannot believe. I don't know how many buses and minivans and the like they have. I would not be shocked if they had 40 to 50. But I do know this, that on Tuesday they are going to approve a purchase of 9 new minivans in addition to that. They're also kind of interestingly, they're going to award to a company called Duo Guard Industries bus shelters. So now our county, and of course our federal government, is so flush with cash, we're going to be providing covered bus stations all over the county, which is a lovely idea. But isn't that something that you do when you've prudently managed your finances, so you have additional money left over, and you can do the nice fun things? And I would, had a little experience. I was at a motel over the weekend because I was out in Lansing for the Republican convention. And one of the things that I do, because I like to do it, is I always like to leave a tip to the people who clean the rooms in the motel. So I usually leave about $10. And as I was reaching for my $10, I said, I wonder how many people do this. And sometimes I'll ask, and some people, and this was clearly, I was at a Red Roof Inn. This was a working man's hotel with lots of pickup trucks, and you could tell that people who were probably away from home were actually staying there maybe for a significant period of time. But I had the additional $10 to leave as a tip. And when I'm at restaurants and things, I like to tip quite a bit more than 20% if I've gotten decent service. I can do that because I've been prudent in my lifetime with my finances, and I have the additional money. I don't begrudge somebody who doesn't have the money, but I can do things that are nice, that make me feel good, because I've been prudent in my decisions. What we have here in our government, I don't care if it's local, state, or federal, people who want to feel good in the same way that I did when I left my little tip. They want to feel good, but they don't want to do it with their own money. They want to do it with your money, or what's even worse, they've already spent all of your money. They've spent your children's money. They're going to send somebody out to China to borrow trillions and then put it on your grandchildren's or your unborn grandchildren's credit card, and then so that they can feel good about themselves. And we have this right here in Muskegon County with these bus shelters. A nice idea, but come on. One other happy note here, the Muskegon County, or the city of Muskegon, which has got their problems. We didn't get a chance to, shocking that we got off topic, we didn't get a chance to talk about the smart meter meeting. I would like to just say it was a tremendous success. Ann Derwin and Sandy Kempf, two ladies, put it together. They convinced me to at least to do some intros there, and I was unfairly getting some credit as being an organizer, and I really wasn't. But it was at the Blue and Gold Room at MCC. Sold out. I mean, there was no charge for it, but it was full. 130 people were in the room. A guard from MCC came in and said, you can't have any more people in. We had to turn away. I personally turned away about 15 people. It is on video on eyeonmuskegon.com, so if you're interested in taking a look at it, you can see the whole event. It was very compelling. What to me was most important, I thought it was these smart meters were very interesting, and there were some people there from Consumers Energy who were saying that, of course, the smart meters are smart, but they also let something out that kind of shocked me. They said in the summer that Consumers Energy, as it now stands, has to buy 30% of its electrical power because they don't have enough generation power. And that's before they shut down, 15 power plants in Michigan, one of which is, of course, our Cobb plant, which is a huge taxpayer in our county. So they're going to shut all these plants down, and they're going to put these smart meters on, and they already don't have the generating capacity. You can be sure that we're not the only state in the country. I mean, think about this. We don't have enough generating capacity, and we're the only state in the country that has lost population and lost businesses.
Where are they buying it from, Jim?
He said all over Canada, different places. But anyway, what the great news to me was these two ladies, pretty much out of nowhere, they're not political people. They stood tall. They got they publicized this thing. 130 interested citizens stayed in or attended that meeting and were interested in learning. And folks, I just got to tell you, there is some hope. There are people interested, people willing to pick up the phone and contact their electeds. Thank you guys. Appreciate you being here. Don't forget, Talk to Muskegon show, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Stay tuned at noon. Mike will continue to be here for the Renegade River show. And we'll be back breathlessly next week with some more exciting stuff. Thanks for listening in, folks.